going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 2 prop stream for the Rocket Classic. Got to get you guys ready for all of your props and bets for tomorrow with a look at the weather report, some of the averages from round 1, what we can learn about the round 2 setup, as well as how to attack all the different prop categories on sites like PrizePicks and Underdog, as well as all the sportsbook matchups on sites like Draftkings and FanDuel. We'll pretty much give you a taste of everything that you could possibly want to know. Anything on top of what we touch on here, though, you guys can hit me up with questions in the chat. So the next 30 minutes or so is your time, so don't be shy at all to go ahead and pick my brain. I see we got Philbo in chat already, a local, which is nice to have that boots on the ground info. And yeah, you're right, a lot windier in the afternoon. Thunderstorm chances look to be dwindling as we speak, so fingers crossed we don't get a delay. But good stuff with that. We got Luke down there too, also iMethods. We're doing solid. We got a little Red Bull to keep us up, get us up for this live stream, and hopefully it's going well for all of you out there too. So first thing I need you guys to do is to go ahead and smash that like button if you guys haven't already, whether you're on the live crew or on the replay crew. Don't be shy to say hi in the comments or live chat. And like I said, any bets you want me to deep dive, feel free to go ahead and let me know. We're going to get to questions and the bets a little bit later on, though. Beforehand, we're going to touch on course conditions. So the first thing is let's set a baseline with the averages from today, and you can see those on the board right here. So stroke average was a little bit under 3 strokes under par. Birdie average 4.86 per round. Bogeys are worse, 1.97, which were all pretty close to what I thought it would be. It played a little bit easier than the projected averages, which was a good thing, right? We took all positive stance plays. So the fact it played easier was only going to help us with the value that we took. I thought it'd be like a 4.5, 4.6 birdie average. It was closer to 4.85 per round. Bogey average, though, I thought would be right about 2 per round. So not as surprised there. It was a little bit more gettable, I guess, for birdies than what we saw in 2024. And the fairway average was 9.25 per round. I think that was spot in line with what we predicted yesterday. And then the green average went up to 13.3 per round. And I heard a few other people mentioning it might get to like 13.5, even like 13.75 per round. That's just a little bit too bullish, in my opinion, for this kind of a field. We've got some real slapdicks that are teeing it up. So even with perfect conditions, it didn't go up all that much, which we also called for on yesterday's live stream. So, not a surprise that we hit on the 2 props that we pointed out. It was a really good start to the week. We have that kind of a course read. And heading into tomorrow, there's a few things that are going to change. So these averages, good to have in our back pocket, kind of, have an understanding of how this course plays when it's playing easy. But tomorrow it is going to be windier, as our guy Philbo was saying. Afternoon especially, it looks a little bit gustier, closer to 20, even 25 mile an hour gusts. It's going to be hot as hell too, and that could even have an effect on the golf course. But the other thing to consider is that it might not be lift, clean, in place. Today, there was much more forecasted rain. Tomorrow, you can see in this forecast, there's no rain in this HRRR. A few of the local forecasts still have some chance of showers, but I would be not surprised in the least if they don't go with lift, clean, in place, which would have a pretty drastic impact on these averages. Scoring average would change probably at least a half a stroke. And that's not even considering the wind and the weather. So I personally think the scoring average for tomorrow is going to be closer to -2 when you put it all together. Morning wave, maybe closer to -2.5 scoring average. I think a little bit harder if they don't go with lift, clean, in place. But the afternoon, with the winds kicking up to even like 15 miles an hour sustained, I could see it only playing like -1.5. And, if that's the case, if it goes like -1.5, -2.5 in the morning, that's how you get your -2 average. But that is quite significantly harder than what we had for round 1. And I think some people are going to sleep on the fact that it was lift, clean, in place. That has a pretty big impact at these kind of golf courses. And birdie average might not move as much. I do think the wind is going to impact it a bit. So maybe it goes down to like 4.4, 4.5 per round. But I think the bigger difference for round 2 is going to be this bogey average, which I could see going up to the whole way to like 2.5 per round. So we'll see how it shakes out. I think like 4.5 birdie average, 2.5 bogey average is what I'm going to end up going with, which gets you close to that -2 scoring average. So that's an idea on conditions. In terms of pin locations, we're going to go through those next. I haven't had the liberty of going hole by hole at this point. So the next thing on the agenda for getting an idea on course conditions is going to be to see where they have the holes placed. So let's go to hole 1. I'm going to the shot tracker so that we can see all the undulations and whatnot on these greens and see if they're harder or easier than today. And he said, "You're the best in the business." Hey, I appreciate the kind words, Leonard. I don't know if I'd say that. I think there's a lot of really bright people that have been around for a while, but hey, I appreciate that you think that at the very least. That's awesome. You said you turned 20 into $95 because of me. Much appreciated. I mean, those are the things I like to hear. Let's run it back tomorrow and let's stay vigilant to the plan, right? No increasing the unit size. We got to stay like the turtle in the race between the turtle and the hare. Slow and steady wins the race when it comes to this. So let's just slowly and surely add on top of that. He said, "What's up, bro? Looking forward to hearing my opinion on some three balls. You know the drill, Saba, right? Towards the end, we'll be hooking you up. So stay tuned here in probably about 20, 30 minutes on that stuff." So first thing I want to go through would be these pin locations, which I haven't had a chance to go through yet. Hole one's in this back right corner. I would say it's about the same difficulty as today. Obviously, the wind and wind direction could really impact how this hole plays, but at least from the hole location perspective, not all that much changes. It's got the right side bunker in play rather than the left side like you had for round one. And it's like 1, maybe 2 yards deeper into the screen, but I would say little to no difference with the difficulty. And, it might play harder because of the wind, but it won't really be the pin location that's the cause there. Next up, we have 2, which is a left middle pin location. I was going to say left front, but it's a little bit further into the green, so I don't want to call it a front pin location. It's about where my cursor is now, and I would say a little bit easier than today's pin. It's shorter. It's got a little bit more slope that helps you towards this left side. For example, like if you have a shot that's drawing in, you could run off the slope and closer to the pin location, but just a marginal difference at the very most. It's probably going to play about the same as today. Wind direction, of course, if it's downwind, it could be a whole lot easier. If it's into the wind, that would add some difficulty. Next up, we have 3, which is a front left pin location. This is a short wedge par 4, so I think it's going to play about the same as round 1. It's at a similar portion of the green, just towards the left side now, and that's kind of been the case with every pin so far, right? Like they're not giving us that much diversity with these pin locations. So let's see what else we have. That's only the first 3 holes at least. Let's go to next up. We got hole 4, which is in the back right corner. It's probably going to play harder than today, I would say. Reason for that is that it is a longer shot, already a longer par 5. And if you're hitting a wedge shot into it, you would rather have a front pin location, especially one that's in a low spot like it was for today, rather than a back pin location where it's harder to get to it because you have to control your spin. Let's assume you're laying up, right? It's a long par 5. So most people probably are going to have to lay up and then try and hit to this back pin location. If you're chipping to it, I would say it's like the same difficulty. So if you're Kevin Roy, who evidently had it downwind today, so if it is downwind tomorrow, maybe you don't see as many people laying up. But if you do have to lay up, let's say you miss the fairway, it's going to be a harder shot to hit close. So I would say marginally more difficult, but wind direction could really throw that off, right? If it's downwind like it was this afternoon, it's probably going to play about the same as today just because you're getting that wind assist. Next up, we have hole 5. That is a front right pin location. This is already a shorter par 3. So this is probably about the same difficulty as today. You might be tempted to say it's easier just because it's a shorter shot in. But I mean, the difference between 155 and 165 isn't very much with these tour players. And that front miss, this sloping is penal. I mean, look how deep that bunker is in front of this green. That could make the scoring actually get harder than what it is for round number 1, just because, and even like this front right miss, you don't want to miss down this grass slope. It's not an impossible up and down, but it's certainly one of the harder up and downs you have around Detroit Golf Club. I would say a marginally harder pin location there. Next up, we've got 6, which is on the front left side. So this is an easier pin than today. So I would say that they look about the same, maybe harder through the first 5 holes. This is the first example, though, of one that is definitely going to be more straightforward. It's a longer par 4, so it's kind of nice that you have the front pin location. If you miss the fairway at a long par 4, a lot of times you're just hitting your iron shot in front of the green complex, which to that back left pin location today made for a very awkward par save. And I actually had a few people I took for stroke bets today that weren't able to get that done. So now that it's on this front left corner, I think it could be a slightly easier scoring average. But of course, that wind direction, which I believe was into today, so that was part of the reason it played as one of the harder holes out there. If it's the same thing tomorrow, it could still play pretty difficult, even if they move that. And we know they're moving a pin up, even with the moved up pin location. Next up, we have 7, which is in this little back right corner. This is also a harder pin. So based on first glance, I actually think that like it could play harder than what I thought. Like, especially because like You don't have the lift clean in place, so you're going to make more bogeys to begin with. And then the first par five was a harder pin. This is a harder pin in this back corner. Now, it's still going to be a birdie hole because only 555, 560 yards toward this back pin location here. But it's definitely not as straightforward as today. I mean, today it was on the front, it was wide open. You had eagles into this kind of a pin location. I still think you might see like 1 or 2 eagles at hole number 7, but maybe not as many as for round number 1. So wind direction is always going to play a really big factor on these holes. I believe 7 was into the wind today. So if it's into the wind again, like that back pin location, it's not going to be a hard hole by any means, but it might not play to like the 50, 60% birdie average like you had in round number 1. Next up, you have 8, which is a middle left pin location. That would be a little bit easier than today. It's still up on the top shelf, though. So when they put it down here on the bottom, it's going to play even easier than what you had for rounds 1 and 2. Next up, we have 9. This was one of the harder holes on the golf course. I believe it played into the wind, and that was part of the reason for that. So this back left pin location, if it's the same wind direction, that could be a little troublesome. I mean, like 210 yards, a little bit into the wind. We'll see. If the wind direction is different, though, it'll probably be a little bit easier than today because I'm pretty sure it was straight into the fan for round 1. Next up, we have 10, which is a right side pin location. That's about the same difficulty as today, I'd say. It's just on the right side as opposed to the left, so not much to say about that one. Next up, we have 11, which is in the back right corner. It's a longer par 3, so this looks way harder. Like, I know it was in a low spot today. It played 233. I would say that there's almost like a 90% chance that they move up the tee box here because, I mean, if they played at 235 to this back right corner, it would be brutal unless it played directly downwind. I also think that this hole played into the wind today, at least if memory serves me correctly from what I saw on the ESPN Plus coverage. So yeah, this back right corner, I would be utterly shocked if they don't move up the tee box 1 or 2 spots. But if they don't, this will clearly be the hardest hole on the golf course. But I have a sneaking suspicion that that won't be the case. It's the PGA Tour. They take it easy on these guys more often than not. 12 was also pretty difficult because it was slightly into the wind, or at least it was a side wind off the tee. Definitely not downwind here. And it's a 500-yard par 4. This pin location looks easier on paper, but I would argue it's going to be about the same difficulty. It's a shorter shot in that does maybe take away some difficulty on the approach shot. But what adds the difficulty back is the around the green if you miss short. With this false front, it's a pretty tricky up and down. It really goes down this hill. So it leaves you like 70, 80 feet to that front pin location. So yeah, I'd say the scoring average probably won't change much. But if you hit a good iron shot, you're going to have a better chance for a birdie at 12. It's one of the few holes that we can say that on, right? There's been a couple, but there's been more so far that seem a little bit stiffer. 13 is towards the left side of the screen. That's about where my cursor is now. Probably about the same difficulty as today. You know, I was going to say maybe a hair harder, but I'm not sure it's going to be that big of a difference. Next up, we have 14, which is on this right side of the green. This is an easier pin than today, but you can't sleep on it because it is on this top little shelf. And for example, if you miss where Kevin Roy did, it's a difficult up and down because it's hard to keep on that top shelf. So I would say less water risk. It's much further away from that aquatic penalty area, which is a positive. But the green sloping, I would say, takes away all of that advantage that you're getting with that movement. Next up, we have 15 short par 3. That is a front left pin location. It probably easier than today. I think that's safe to say. I mean, it's going to be like 140 yards to this front left pin location. So open season, probably a lot of birdies there. 16 is medium length par 4. That is a back left pin. That looks harder than today. And yeah, in practice, it probably will be harder than what you had in round number 1. Just a longer shot, a little bit more around the green stuff that comes into play. 17 is your last par 5. It looks like a front right pin location, maybe like middle right would be the better way to put it, about where my cursor is right now. Slightly easier than today, but really not that big a difference. You just don't want to miss in this front right bunker because that short-sided miss is going to be tough to get up and down unless you can make like a 10-footer for birdie. And then finally, 18 is a front pin. That's easier than today, but don't sleep on this one because it does bring this ditch into play. So I think that the birdie rate, wind direction, throw that out, right? Let's assume neutral wind direction here would probably go up a little bit because it's a shorter shot. You have some slope heading going to this front right corner, but the around the green shot is more difficult if you miss. So overall,
Yeah, I think the bogey average is definitely going to go up, probably to like 2.5 per round. If they don't move up the tee at 11, it'll probably be like 2.6, 2.7 per round. Like that could be a 0.1, a 0.2 bogey difference right there if they don't move up that tee box. Let's assume they do, though. I think the 2.5 bogey average going up about 0.5 per round is reasonable. And then the birdie average, to go back to that one, I think 4.4, 4.5 might be a better projection now. I think I said 4.5, 4.6 before. I'm going to adjust that down ever so slightly, mostly because of the par fives on the front. Both of them are a little bit harder than today, just more difficult up and downs. I don't think you're going to be like 50, 60% birdie rates, especially if they're playing with a neutral or an into wind direction. Those ones would be probably 20, 30 percenters with the birdie or better percentage. So yeah, like 4.4, 4.5 per round. Stroke average for the round. Now I've maybe think like 1.8 under par, maybe like 1.9 under par overall. Morning though, could still play minus 2.5. I think that's pretty reasonable. But when the wind kicks up, I mean, some of these back pins, it's going to really affect the ball since it's traveling further. It's going to be higher in the air, etc. I think it could play to like a minus 1.4, minus 1.3 scoring average. So like, I think you're going to see a pretty big difference between the morning and the afternoon, which is why if you guys saw the fantasy live stream earlier, I'm so bullish on taking some of those morning guys. And I think the pin setup is, weird it is as it is to say, kind of adds into that more because like, holes like 16, the ball's in the air, you hit a wedge, it's gonna be traveling to that back pin. Like a lot of bad stuff can happen. Like 9 kind of comes to mind. I mean, that's that long par 3 ball is going to be traveling in the air for quite some time. When the wind really starts to kick up and the course firms out, don't forget it's also going to be 95 degrees. I think some fades in the afternoon could make a lot of sense. So overall, with this sort of a setup, you'd want to take your fades and you like over on strokes, unders on birdies for your PM wave players. And then your positive stance plays you'd want to keep for the morning because with these lower winds, the better scoring conditions, you're going to see a lot of these guys still go low, probably a lot of -4, -5 rounds. Afternoon, though, I don't think you're going to see a lot of -4, -5 rounds outside of maybe some of the studs that go out there and have a really good ball striking day because pin locations aren't a cupcake setup. They probably saw all these people bitching. I mean, look at this to the right. Look at all these little crybabies. They should narrow the fairways, grow the rough, and add a few yards. They should put the holes in Canada to make this whole competitive. I mean, like, what are we doing? Like, dude, like these same people were probably mad at Oakmont. It was playing over par. But yeah, they probably see that kind of stuff and were like, oh, we're not going to make it that easy. So yeah, don't be surprised if there's a little bit of carnage in the afternoon. And by the way, afternoon bogey average could even be like 2.75 to 3 per round. So don't sleep on that. I still think you'll see some people making birdies in the afternoon. 4 par 5s, a lot of short par 4s. So, I'm not saying the course is going to be impossible then, but it will be significantly harder than what you had in the morning hours. So I've already entered a few props for myself. I'll go ahead and give you guys an idea of exactly how I'm attacking this slate, but I already kind of spilled the beans on it, right? Positive stance plays early, fades towards the end. And something else to point out is that over here on Prize Picks, we also do have some live golf stuff posted, which for the first slip I ended up taking was a live golf prop that I mixed in. So we're going to talk about some live golf stuff after we get through the PGA board. Before we talk through props, though, do want to catch up on chat, see what's going on. And see, you said the under on Boxy and Clanton hit, easy money. Good stuff, dude. I saw your comment on that. Seemed like a pretty reasonable slip to take, so I'm glad they came through for you. And see, you said, what is the cut number and what does it look like tomorrow? So yeah, it is going to be tough to kind of gauge just because of the wind and how it's going to impact things. But I would say -4, -5 would probably be the sweet spot for that. And you said also what's going to be a low day. I think that, or I guess you're asking on the scoring averages. I just gave a pretty detailed breakdown on that. I mean, the scoring's still going to be better than most courses. I mean, it's one of the easiest ones that we have on the entire schedule. However, the conditions aren't going to be nearly as good as today. So let me know if that answers your question. I wasn't 100% sure based on how you worded that one. Hey, Luke, never been with you on the live before. You the man. I know you watch all my content, though, Ernie. And nice to have you in a live chat for once. You're one of the OGs and one of the sweaty tryhards, as we call them. So welcome on in, my dude. First time you made it on for the live, too. Good stuff, Nick. Look at that. We got multiple first-time livers in the chat. He said, had a great day today. Appreciate the work I put in for us.
Cheers to that, man. I appreciate the kind words. You back Hideki as a risky each way play because of the upside. And yeah, man, he had a really shitty start for you, but he pulled it together by the end of it, right? -5 rounds or whatever he ended up scoring. And yeah, he said he's so frustrating about how he does the hard stuff perfect and then misses on the simple putt. Yeah, that's his MO, man. You give him a super difficult up and down and he'll pull it off. 440 for birdies are his absolute nemesis, though. Canada only one extra club from here. That's true. Yeah. I mean, what is it? Windsor that's over the bridge. I've been to the casino in Windsor before. That's true. Thoughts on less than 5.5 birdies for Morikawa and Cantlay with the afternoon tee times? So I'm not 100% sure my take on those two. They're clearly better than average players. And if I think the birdie average is going to drop in the afternoon to like, I don't know, like 4.2, 4.3 per round, players like those two project for a little bit over 5 birdies, but probably not over the 5.5 mark. And I haven't ran my exact projections on those two players yet, but they would be probably in that like 5 to 5.25 range for a projection. If I just had to like give you a rough estimate, yeah, I mean, I would lean under, but I will say, like, if anyone's still going to make 6+ birdies, it would be your Morikawas and your Cantlays. So I think if you're on Underdog, you can find some guys at 5.5 birdies that are slightly lower tier players that you could take for fades as well. And I know the multipliers aren't going to be as good. I think there were even money on those two, but it might be worth taking the guys with the multipliers just so that you're not betting against the first and second best player in the field, right? Because there is inherent risk when you're fading a player like that, right? It's like fading Jokic in basketball for any roll prop that he has. It's you're playing with fire, but there can be value on those sort of spots as well. Let's go through what I've taken so far. So the first prop I took already got bumped in an entire stroke. So if you're on the Patreon page and you're able to get these as soon as I drop them, there's a lot of inherent value to doing so. But I took this under on Keith Mitchell at 70 strokes. So we're going to have to find some sort of replacement. 0.5 stroke bumps can sometimes still be playable, but an entire stroke bump from 70 down to 69 strokes is a little bit outrageous, to say the least, especially because PrizePicks only posted their board about 30 minutes ago from now. So they were quick to go ahead and move that. In fact, there are probably a lot of people on the Patreon page. You probably couldn't even catch that if it ended up bumping that quickly. Like, not everyone's like sitting, spamming on the Patreon page, trying to catch stuff before it ends up moving. But the idea with the under on Keith at 70, because I still want to give you guys that perspective onto kind of what I'm looking for a morning wave player, is if I think the scoring average is going to be in that -2 to -2.5 range in the morning, especially, I think it'll play easier without all the winds really kicking up. And Keith, by the way, goes off at 6:45 a.m. So you're talking about literally the first group off, which I think is going to be a big advantage because the winds only get worse as the day goes on. You're telling me that at 70 strokes, that was a -2 projection, that he was an average to maybe even slightly below average player. Like, that's something I'll take an under on all day, because we all know at this point that Keith Mitchell is not an average player, especially in a weaker field event like this. He's a well above average player. Some would even say that he's an elite tier player, at least based on his outright odds and some of the respect that he gets on the sports books. They kind of treat him like he's an elite tier player at this point. So for him to be at that -2 projection is, I thought, like a clear mistake. Like, they had Joel Damon at 69.5. Aldrich Potgieter, who I bet this week. I love the guy. He's made me a lot of money in 2025. He was at 69 strokes. And like, Keith Mitchell is like a way better player than Potgieter is. That's why that one was like the most obvious value ever. So if you're able to catch that, congrats to you. I was able to get that for all of my exposure, but yeah, I guess they bumped it for a reason. It was a pretty egregious line in hindsight to have that the whole way up at 70. And because it was the number one prop on the board, it was staring at me straight in the face. So like, how couldn't I play it at that point? Like, to have him at the same number as Danny Willett was just like a massive mistake. But if I'm looking for these morning wave guys, like, I could see playing somebody to shoot -3, maybe -4 if they were like an elite tier player. So like, for example, I was kind of eyeing Cam Young when I first started looking at the board. On sportsbooks, I believe he's like -135 for the under, which really, the sportsbook odds are just one data point I look at for this. But the idea with Cam Young is that today he played pretty terribly today. He did not have his fastball, yet he still shot -4. And that was despite losing strokes ball striking, was still able to post a lot of birdies, which I think kind of speaks to his floor at this point. He's been playing some really good golf over the last month or so. And the reason why
that doesn't really worry me as much. Like some of the ball striking stats is, I mean, look at the finishes, right? He had top 5 at the US Open, top 5 at the RBC Canadian Open. Travelers, maybe not the best. Yeah, T52 is not ideal, but he's been playing much better over the last 3 months or so than we've seen for quite some time. Like even that Truist top 7 was pretty solid. Top 20 at Valero, that's a positional golf course. That's not really the kind of course that you'd expect Cam Young to excel at. You've seen him finish in the top 20. So I think that there's some reason for optimism on his game. And if he's going to play like a 4, 5 out of 10 sort of golf and still shoot -4, that's why I was kind of eyeing that one. And I haven't entered it myself. Of course, that slip with Keith Mitchell, then the one live golf prop is the only prop that I've taken to this point. But for the sake of the live stream slip, right, to give you guys a piece of exposure to take for yourself, I'm not against substituting Cam Young in here as the under on strokes for PGA that we're taking. And he's also an AM wave player, right? That's important when it comes to taking a positive stance play, is the fact that he's going off at 7:40 a.m. So he's going to be dealing with the lower winds compared to what they get in the afternoon. By the way, his track record at this course is excellent too. So that's another reason why Cam Young could kind of be on your record. Just taking a look at another tab here to give you guys the event history, T6 and then T2 around Detroit Golf Club. So 2 top 6 finishes. Like I said, today was kind of like the worst golf that we've seen from him for quite some time, and he still would have covered this sort of number. Now, the difference with lift clean in place, right? That is going to make things slightly more difficult, but I'm not assuming that Cam Young's going to lose strokes ball striking for all 4 rounds. And then I will go through the live golf prop because this one, at least, didn't look like it bumped, and yeah, it's still at that same sort of number. It was this over on Kevin Na strokes, and we don't have the averages to go with for LIV yet. They, of course, have their round 1 tomorrow. They only have 3 rounds as opposed to 4 on the PGA Tour. This golf course, though, it's not technically the first time that we're seeing it on LIV, but it is the first time that we're seeing it for stroke play. So the LIV golf event, I'm actually just going to bring up their site so I can show you guys like the course yardage, some of like the holes that they're playing and stuff like that. So just 1 second while I bring up their website. They don't have like a whole bunch of stuff to go through, but they have enough that I can give you guys kind of like a sense for how it's going to play. So let's get the course info. And this is Jordan Spieth's home course. This is Bryson DeChambeau's home course. Will Zalatoris plays out of here as well. So it's a very nice establishment, as you guys would probably guess, if those guys are making it their home track. Par 72 setup, and it's a 7,500-yard golf course. So relatively long, especially for some of the shorter guys on tour, could be a little bit of an issue. Some of the highlights, a 655-yard par 5. The shorties are going to have some trouble there. 475 par 4 and a 528-yarder to finish. And you can see the par 3s have some lengths in them outside of 14, which is 150 yards. Also, I guess 8s, right? Shout out there. There's another shorter par 3, but also you have ones that are 200 plus yards on the docket as well. So it's I would say a pretty difficult golf course, sort of unique in the fact that off the tee, it is rather generous, but because it plays firm and fast in Texas and there's so much undulation at this golf course, the fairways play a lot smaller than they are in practice. So even some of your more accurate players are going to end up missing fairways even when they hit the short stuff. It's kind of like Oakmont in that way, that you just get screwed sometimes. Like it's not even your fault that you end up missing fairways and end up into the rough. And they were saying that this golf course was fiery out there. It was playing pretty difficult. And one of the LIV reporters that I saw out there was saying that this could be one of the better tests that you have on the entire schedule. There's some water around Maridu, a lot of bunkering that's really difficult around the green. So to get back to the prop that I took, this Kevin Na over on strokes, it's a par 72 setup. I mean, you'd have to shoot -2 to go under this kind of line. And just to show you the form with Kevin Na, I mean, why would we think that he's going to shoot -2? If you take a look at his last 4 starts on the LIV Tour, he's gone T38, T34, T41, and T44. Sure, I'm cherry picking it a bit because he went T14, T12, T18, the 3 starts before that. But yeah, the last 4 starts are absolute horseshit for him. He's averaging about 1.5 shots gained lost per round. In fact, it's closer to like 1.6, 1.7 shots lost per round over those last 4 rounds. So let's assume that he has a good week and he's like an average. Like I think like a neutral player would be a relatively good week for Kevin Na. Do we think it's going to have a -2 scoring average? Like I don't, right? When I see this sort of golf course, when I see a course that's 7,500 yards, not a lot of wind in the forecast. So we can look at the weather too. I do have Maridoe Golf Club on some of the windy stuff over here, but you'll see winds are close to like 8 to 10 miles an hour the entire day. I don't think it's going to play like brutally. Sorry, we're on the wrong day. Sorry, yeah, Friday's the right day. I thought we were on the wrong day for a second. Yeah, it's not going to play like brutally difficult or anything like that, but I think it's going to play like minus 0.5 to -1. So the beauty of mixing in these two different events, by the way, is even if they were both in the same direction, so let's assume that we were taking a Cam Young fade instead, right? It would still pay 3x. The beauty is when we mix these two different events together is that the correlation rules end up getting taken out. So if you guys want to find some easier to enter slips on Prize Picks, that's usually a good way to go about it. And this will be the first slip that we take here for the live stream. So Cam Young probably be a prop I take at some points. Just have to find exactly what combination I'm going to end up entering it with. It might even be another fade for the live golf side, because if we take a look at the rest of the board, there's even some other players that could make sense. But like even Brendan Grace, like he kind of seems like he probably shouldn't be at 70.5, like 71.5 is probably a better projection there. A Phil Mickelson, a Bubba at 71.5, like you could even consider overs on those sort of guys as well. I'd probably have them at 72 strokes, a little bit worse than the field average, because I mean, let's be real about it. I love Bubba, I love Phil. They're legends of the game, future Hall of Famers, but they're well past their prime at this stage of their careers. That's what I'm thinking on the live side, but I'm not going to go too overboard on entering props over there just because we haven't seen the golf course before, right? It's going to be the first time that we've seen it in action before. So I'm not going to be too bullish on how we expect that golf course to play, right? We have a lot more data on Rocket Mortgage after seeing round number 1. And this is a golf course in Rocket Mortgage that we see every single year. And we can't say that about the live golf side. So that Kevin Na fade might be the only fade to end up taking on that side of things. Yeah, and I think that's a pretty fair thing to say. And then we're going to go to Underdog to try and find some more PGA stuff to enter, because I'm not just going to go with that Cam Young prop. Let's refresh this. If it'll find my location, I guess I'll get it to refresh on here. And let me see if there's any bets you guys want me to deep dive in chat. So where'd we leave off? So yeah, we went over that bet, the 5.5 unders on those two. He said, "Hey Luke, new to the streams, have been following me on Ship It, wondering how many legs I put into my slips. You heard 5 or 6 is what allows for plus EV. That is a great point, Daniel, and I will give my take on that because it's not necessarily true. And it's based on a few assumptions. So let me give the spiel on this. It's been done a million times on this channel before. But I'll give it to you too, because obviously you said you're new, right? You saw me on Ship It, so you haven't been watching these ones as much. When they say that those are the most plus EV, they're talking about plus EV bettors. And plus EV bettors are usually not betting on one single sport. Usually they're using odds boards and like a site like Odds Jam, Daily Grind Fantasy. There used to be a sponsor of the channel that I had on a lot of this content. They'll use optimizers across a bunch of different sports. They're not doing any handicapping themselves. And all they care about, right, is the exact odds of what you're entering, right? That's what a plus EV bet is. When you're a plus EV bettor, you want to enter those 5-6 leg slips because you're going to have access to a lot of plus EV props, right? If you're somebody that's on an odd screen like that, you're going to have 9-10 sports usually that you're going to be able to pull props from. And you're not doing the traditional analysis on those props, right? You're just straight up taking them from whatever odds board is telling you that they're plus EV, and then you're entering them. In that case, yes, 5-6 leg slips that you can flex. You don't want to do power plays that are 5-6 legs, but if you can do the flex plays, usually those are the quote unquote best payout structures, but that's assuming that you have enough props to do that with. When you're entering on a single sport like golf, football, whatever the case may be, anything that's a little bit more niche and it's harder to find 5 or 6 legs that you feel good about, it completely changes that equation, right? Because to find props that you think are value enough to overcome the in-house edge, you're gonna have a much harder time finding 5 or 6 props, right? So that's why I focus on the smaller leg slips that you do have a bigger in-house edge to overcome, but at the same time, you're not forcing in props and forcing in spots that aren't as good of value. Like I'm a very disciplined bettor. I only bet what I think is for sure value. Like per the numbers, I go out there and bet. A lot of people that are in the plus EV space aren't doing any of that sort of stuff, right? It's just they see the odds board, they see the bet, they go out there and enter it themselves. So their thought process has to be a little bit different. So the main idea with that, by the way, is that the odds in your hit rate on props falls off as you start to get down the board, right? Like your first few props that you see on the board should have a higher hit rate than the ones that you find 6th or 7th down the board. And maybe your 3rd or 4th scan through to try and find some value. And when the hit rate starts to drop off like that, right, it's hard to want to model out the quote unquote EV of a slip with a consistent hit rate, because that's not necessarily true, right? I would argue, and I'm a huge proponent of this. This is why this has been like a rant that I've done 1,000 times on the channel before, is the hit rate drops off rather drastically as you add legs. So in my opinion, unless it's like a glaring slate where like there's just a ton of value to go out there and enter, that you should probably only be entering 2 or 3 legs for the most part. So I do a lot of 2-leg slips because I can usually find 2 props that I can find a 58% plus edge on. But yeah, I mean, these prop sites like PrizePicks, Underdog, you're essentially eating -130, -135 juice on a 2 to a 3-leg slip. And PrizePicks made it a little bit better with them doing 6x payouts on 3-leg cards, but it's still tough. Yeah, you still have to find that kind of value. So that's my take on it. And yeah, 5-6 leg parlays are really hard to hit. So the other part that makes that difficult is not only finding the props that are value, but also having the volume to take advantage of that, right? Because if you're going to enter slips that you're hitting once out of every 20, once out of every 25 times, if it's a 6-leg power play, that's what you're looking at, right? In terms of a hit rate there, then you're going to have 150 props, right? That's how many times, like 25 times 6, 150 props to try and find one to hit. That's really hard to find 150 props that you're going to like. So those are my critiques of that analysis. And I've seen it 1,000 times. I've even ran it myself. Like anytime you get a new slip, I always like to kind of see what the quote unquote implied odds would be. But you've got to keep in mind some of that other stuff. That's what somebody that's been doing the prop betting stuff for a very long time, 5-6 years at this point, that's the kind of stuff that you learn over the years, is that it's it's not as straightforward as some of the people try and make it seem, like the plus EV people. Hey, if you have like a bunch of props to enter, I guess all the power to you, but most people don't, right? Have I looked at the birdie or better matchups? Ben Griffin to have more birdies than Woodland seems tempting. So yeah, I'll give a little PSA on this one too. So these birdie or better matchups are usually sucker bets, and I'll go to the PGA side because I know that's the one that you were referencing there. Keep in mind with these matchups, man, that they have a 0.5 attached to them. So for example, in the case that you were giving, right, if Ben Griffin and Gary Woodland end up tying on their birdie larks, then this would be an under, right? And you would lose that kind of a bet. And the thing that makes a birdie line different than a strokes line is when you have a strokes matchup, ties don't happen as often because there's much more variance on a strokes line than what you have with birdies. Birdie lines tomorrow, I mean, realistically, like 90% of the field is going to finish somewhere between like 3 to 6 birdies. Like that is going to be where like 90% of the outcomes are. Ties are extremely likely on this kind of a matchup, right? I mean, you're talking about somebody getting to 4 or 5 for a projection as opposed to like 69, 70 like you have for a strokes matchup. You can kind of see with that alone, right, where ties would be a lot more prominent. That's the issue with some of these matchups. So I do think, though, the sentiment you gave, like Ben Griffin's a better birdie maker than Gary Woodland. He's obviously playing better golf. So I think that he's going to make more birdies than Woodland more often than not. But you have to ask yourself, though, does he have a high enough hit rate there to offset for all the ties being losses? And that might be the case on Ben Griffin. There are a few times where I'll take overs on these birdie or better matchups. But I say that they're sucker bets because in most cases, the value is on the under on a lot of these bets. And it's not always the case. You usually want to find somebody that's about the same tier birdie maker as the guy that is the main player. If you can find an opponent that has the same birdie percentage, if not a slightly higher birdie percentage, then you can find a lot of value on these sort of props. And just based on like the first overhead view, like maybe the Seamus Power under would be somebody to take a look at, because I know Ricky and Seamus, neither one makes a whole lot of birdies. In fact, just to double check that one, and I'm not going to enter the birdie or better matchups because I hate entering them. So like that's another part about it, is that it's just not something I like to deep dive. Ricky's actually better than I thought, number 45 on tour in the category. And what's Seamus Power? He's number 48. So this would be a great example here where they're pretty much the same player in the category. Seamus Power, by the way, Ricky has won here before, but Seamus Power also has really good course history. Just to give you guys the exact numbers on that, on Power, so 1 second. He's gone T8 and T12 his last 2 starts at Detroit Golf Club. That's some of the best course history of anyone in the field. Like, don't sleep on that kind of an under on this kind of board. So, yeah, I would lean over on the Ben Griffin one, but mostly if I'm going to take a birdie or better matchup, it's something like that I'm trying to mix in. And in fact, like if you don't like the Cam Young under as much, you think the lift clean in place can make a little bit of a difference. That could be even the pairing that you use with this Kevin Na prop as the 2-man slip for the live stream, because I wouldn't say that one's massive value. Like there are times, by the way, where we'll find the opponent that has a higher birdie or better percentage than the player that's listed. When that's the case and they're getting that 0.5, I mean, those are no-brainer spots to go out there and mix in. And just based on what I see on the board, though, that's the closest matchup that we have. So that's normally why I don't give it that much attention. It's just a little bit of a sucker board, in my opinion. He said, thoughts on Aldrich for the under 69 strokes? He was a little bit too short game dependent for my liking. And what I mean by that is that it wasn't really the ball striking that was his best asset today. Actually, I guess that's not really true. I take that back. He did gain about six, even 7 strokes between the ball striking categories. I mean, I hope he covers that kind of line. I bet him outright this week and have him for a top 10, a top 20 bet, and plenty of exposure in my fantasy lineups. But what I will say is that without the lift clean in place, a -2, -2.5 scoring average, I mean, that's exactly where I would have him projected. I would have him at either 69 or maybe even 69.5 strokes. If it ends up being that there's no lift clean in place, like, yeah, 69.5 strokes might even be where I have him projected. So yeah, I probably wouldn't take that under because he has to shoot -4 to cover that. And a lot of times it's super hard to back up a low score. I mean, shooting -2, -3 would be pretty respectable after shooting -10. So that's kind of the worry there. You have a few custom 2-ball matchups with Cam Young. Give me the American odds, by the way. I don't do well with like the 5 to 4 and stuff. I'm assuming that's what, 1.25 to 1 or plus 125. Give me the American odds so I can give you some analysis there. I just don't want to be looking at them the wrong way. And the reason for that is I never look at those sort of odds, so I'm not going to be able to break that down for you. Jose says, Roy, Potgieter, and Lee is 3x on Sleeper, just going with the dogs. You know what, man? I'm going to give some pushback on that. I don't think that's the greatest idea, man. If you think that the guys that shot -9, -10 are just going to automatically do that again tomorrow, then I've got some bad news for you. That's definitely not how golf works. You ended up using my Bridgman under on strokes and put it with Highsmith and Dunlap for the over 69.5 and hit a nice slip. Yeah, that anti-correlation is pretty good on that one. You said Phil is 11th on LIV this year. You'd feel at fading that. You said you'd avoid fading, you're saying. Okay. You know that he's old, but he's playing for his LIV card this year. Yeah, I mean, I didn't fade it for a reason, Blake. That's why I went to the Kevin Na one, because, I mean, arguably they're playing the same golf, right? Like Kevin Na is an average to below average player. Phil, I know he's had a good start to the year. Even with that, he's still like an average player at best. Like he's probably going to regress back to his mean at some point. But considering that Na's 70.5 and Phil was 71.5, right? That's why I ended up going that direction. So yeah, I hear you on that though. He's definitely had a good start to the year. It's just that I'm not 100% sure if he's going to keep that up. He said, appreciate taking the time for the detailed explanation. Yeah, it's a topic that I talk about a lot, Daniel. So like, I know this might be one of the first couple live streams that you've tuned in for. And I've been doing live streams like this for 4 or 5 years at this point. And a lot of times people like have that question of like, oh, I heard that it was quote unquote plus EV to do the other ones. That it's just, there's too many assumptions in my opinion with a lot of that analysis. And the reason why I have more of an open mind to that kind of stuff is I'm an engineer by trade. I'm an electrical engineer, and my brain is trained, right, to nitpick, to try and find problems in systems, to try and find problems in arguments, because realistically, that's how you make the best product, right? Is to try and poke as many holes in it as you possibly can, to try and flush out all the problems and whatnot. And like anytime I see like people posting those, I'm like, well, why are we assuming a static hit rate, right, across every single prop? And yeah, that's where my brain ends up going, man. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for the props last night. Bridgman hit, like I said, and you took Thompson over 4.5 birdies. He got 6, so you cashed. Good stuff, dude. And he said, do I like Thompson at 4.5 birdies or better? So he is morning wave. I do think that is advantageous, but with the harder pin locations, I'm not so sure, man. I'm probably not going to take that one myself. Let's see. You took Harry Hall, Willett, due to the discrepancy in birdies, and he said, who's Halley? I'm assuming you mean Harry Hall is top 10 and Billups bottom 20. Is that, should you run it back? So you're saying for the matchups, right? That was a little bit of a, I was a little bit wordy there, my man. I didn't really know what you were saying. I had to parse through that for a few seconds. So I see what you're saying, right? Harry Hall's a top 10 birdie maker on tour. That's true. I believe he's still top 10 in tour, right? Where is he? Yeah, number 10 exactly. So still holding on to that. I knew at one point this year he was number 3 or 4, but last few events haven't been as good for him. Yeah, Danny Willett, though, you're spot on about it. He does not make that many birdies. So I would actually say that of any of the overs that I've seen on this board, that, yeah, you'd be right. This would be the best over to take. However, let's just flush this out right now together. Harry Hall, and am I even on the right board here? No, I'm on bogey avoidance. I was on the wrong board. So that explains why that one. And we got to go back to the other board, I guess, for some of those other props. But let's find Harry Hall in here. He's number 5 on tour in the category. Let's see exactly like the raw birdie difference between the two, because my guess would be is that it's close to like a 0.7, a 0.8 birdie difference. So Harry Hall is averaging 4.53 birdies or better per round. Let's find Willett. I'm surprised Willett even has a large enough sample size. Yeah, look, he's not even showing up with the birdie or better list. Let's put him at a below average. Let's go to like number 130. Let's use that for Willett. And this is obviously assuming, right? Because I don't have the exact number of Willett here. But that's like 3.63 birdies or better per round. So that's like a 0.9 birdie difference between where Harry Hall is and then like number 120 to 130 on the PGA Tour and birdie or better percentage. So yeah, with that 0.5 there, I mean, that's just some rough math, kind of doing an estimation based on where I think Danny Willett would rank in that category. Yeah, like you would lean on the over for sure. And in fact, that's probably one of the bigger discrepancies that you're going to find. Like maybe the Sadecki versus Wise one too. I mean, Wise isn't even a PGA Tour player anymore. So like maybe you lean on that over too. But I'm always so hesitant on these birdie or better matchups, man, just because the ties happen so damn much. And hell, not even just the ties. Sometimes these underdogs just end up having themselves a day. And I've had a lot of matchups go the wrong direction before. Like, for example, and I guess like especially way back in the day, you used to be able to enter correlation on these sites a lot easier, right? Without getting as much of a negative multiplier. And the way to really get around it used to be to enter like 4 props in one direction and then 1 birdie or better matchup, because it would like kind of like wash away the multiplier and you'd be able to get like a correlated slip payout. Without the correlated payout, which was kind of nice. But the issue is with these sort of matchups now is they added that 0.5 to it. So back in the day, I used to enter some of those matchups, and even then they would kind of kill me. Like I did one time, it was Scotty Scheffler versus Davis Riley. And we know Scotty Scheffler, world number 1, Davis Riley, an absolute slapdick. It was one of the first slates where they ever had the birdie or better matchups posted. And Riley had like 7 birdies through his first 8 holes. And from that point on, I kind of knew that these birdie or better matchups were absolute shit. Because that day, I think like Scotty shot -6 and lost the birdie or better matchup. And the rest of the slip that was correlated all ended up hitting, right? It was like every single prop, because it played way easier than they had it priced for. Everything went well except for that birdie or better matchup. And that's why I try and stay away from it, because, you know, we spend so much time on these live streams going through conditions, going through stat averages, pin locations, et cetera, to try and kind of break that side down, that it's a shame to want to bet a matchup where that's not even a part of the picture. So that's also part of the reason I give people a hard time for that. Let's see. Also, happy you finally made a stream. Happy to see your work. Yeah, glad to get you guys in the live stream for once. I know, you know, they're late. Sometimes they're hard to get to, but it's good to have you guys in here for once, right? I know we usually have a lot of the sweaty tryhards in here, but yeah, definitely a lot of new names that we don't always see. So on the Underdog side, let me see if they have any of the LIV golf stuff posted. They didn't have it up before we got on here, so I probably haven't posted it, but we'll see. Maybe. Yeah, don't have it posted. I was hoping maybe they'd come through with it. But if I was looking on the Underdog side, I was potentially looking at some AM unders, but I don't know if I can do it, man. Like, look at that, 5.5 birdies for Davis Thompson. That is a very high line. I'd be taking that under all day at 5.5. 4.5, maybe an over. 5.5, yeah, no way. Let's see. What is Davis Thompson at? So he's 5.5 and he shoots -135 under. The AMT time, though, is going to keep me off of wanting to take that kind of fade. But like that is a very, very bullish projection. That just feels a little bit overboard, in my opinion. They are starting to post some of these green regulation props. So they didn't have those ones up before. Let me see what we have available. So I'm looking for a PM wave player. And look at that. We have Andrew Putnam in the PM wave. there could be some unders that can make a lot of sense here, because not only will it be windier, but we're also going to have firmer conditions because it's going to be 95 degrees. Morning wave, guys, when it's not going to be as windy, I don't know if I want to look at as many fades, but like an Andrew Putnam being juiced over 13.5, like that feels like a bit of a mistake there. So let's throw that one in there. And let's go back to the PGA board. Let's see. I guess we got to go back a little bit more. And let me see if I can find anything else that would make sense. So if we could find a positive stance play, that might not be the worst idea. In fact, I might end up taking Cam Young as the under with that. What, do they not have anything up for Cam Young now? That's a shame. They had some stuff up for Cam Young earlier, I thought, but I guess they may have taken that off the board. Let's see, do they have Keith Mitchell up at 70 strokes? Probably not, huh? Yeah, don't have him up at 70. That was the best line in history. Be able to get that earlier today. He better hit tomorrow on that. It's just too good of a line not to end up coming through. If he doesn't, I'm going to be bitterly disappointed. Let's go to the strokes board. Let's see if there's any AM players that are kind of just like jumping out at me. Like Hideki doesn't seem like the worst under, especially because he did it, with his ball striking on the last 5-6 holes. But shooting -4 without lift clean in place is going to be a little bit harder than today. Like, I wouldn't be taking a Grazerman for the under, even though he is AM wave. Look at that. There's Cam Young again. I'm not sure why he didn't show up that time before. This might end up being the combination that I end up playing myself. If you guys want to find something to maybe differentiate it with, because obviously, getting too much exposure to one specific player, something I usually try and stray away from. You'll see me in most cases. I usually don't double up on players that often, unless I really like the lean. Like, there are exceptions to that where I will double up on a player. This case, though, is probably not one where I would do it. If you're only entering one of these two different slips, then maybe you do enter Cam Young with that Andrew Putnam under. But if there's an under on strokes that you guys were eyeing yourself, you could consider that as well. And just kind of looking at the shots gained metrics, who really stood out? I know Ben Griffin had an okay day, but partially that was because of a hole-out eagle. Let me look at Hideki's stat profile. I'm going to see exactly how he did it. So yeah, I gained a bunch on approach and lost putting. Like, I guess if we're going to differentiate it, I'd probably go Hideki Matsuyama as the one that I would throw in. But let me see what his odds are. I'm assuming they're not as good as the Cam Young one is. I could be wrong. So actually, yeah, he's also -135 in that direction. Totally fine as this, as the combination for you guys on the underdog side. In fact, now that I saw that he's -135, there's a chance that Hideki Matsuyama might be making his way into another slip that I'm entering further down the line. So that'll be the Underdog and Prize Picks exposure for round number 2. Hopefully we can cash out on one of these two slips, add on top of the profit that we're able to secure for today. Of course, guys, for all the exposure that I'm getting to for round 2, you guys can find that over there on my Patreon page. Not only do I post every single slip as I'm getting to it, but also I post the reasoning, the stat averages, weather report for every single round to give you guys an idea of exactly how to attack the slate. So you'll have predicted averages, the stat averages from the day before, to attack every single type of prop that you see on all these different kind of slates, and for every single round at these golf tournaments. So link down below in the description of this video, or the replay if you're watching the live stream after the fact, to go ahead and check out the Patreon page. And the last thing we're going to do here is go through some tournament matchups, which we'll see what we can find with some 3-balls. And I usually go for some long shots, and that is definitely going to be the case again. And I prefer betting matchups after we end up getting shots gained metrics, because it gives us an ability to get a sense for how players are trending. So pretty excited to do that. Where do we leave off? So first time watching and subscribed, you seem sharp. Hey, I appreciate that, Frankie. Thanks. And I think you'll enjoy what you see around here. Is that super tough to find props for value? I wouldn't say super tough, but yeah, like, I want to see how it plays in the morning, and I want to look at some of the PM players, because I think fades in the PM could easily be the play. Anything I like on Sleeper, I'll look after the live stream for my Patreon members, but I can't bring up Sleeper on this. They don't have anything for like regular PC. Like, you can't just go to sleeper.com and bring up their prop boards. So not something that we're going to go through here. And you said Benny Ann under 5.5 birdies. If it's even money, and let me check his tee time, because if he's PM wave, then yeah, for sure, even money I would take his under. So yeah, he's PM wave tomorrow. If you're talking about no multiplier, I would for sure take that pretty much without thought too. That's just, I think the average is going to be like 4.4, 4.5 per round. He is an above average birdie maker, but should he be up at 5.5? Certainly not. Like maybe 4 maybe 5, but even then would probably be juiced under. He said, want to target Morikawa, Hun-An, and Fitzpatrick. All hit the ball well, but couldn't get the putter going. What do I think? The issue with all three of those players actually is that they're in the PM wave. And if you haven't seen the weather is going to be drastically harder in the afternoon. So that was for the Dallas course. But let's go back to Detroit. Let's get onto the golf course, which I believe is, right about here. So the Detroit Golf Club right there. You can see in the afternoon, they're calling for like 15 miles an hour wind. So yeah, I think it makes sense from the stat profile, but compared to some of the morning guys that are going to be playing with a lot lower winds, I don't think they're going to go nearly as low. Can I deep dive Ryo Hisatune? Sure, I can. I can show you some of the shots gained metrics. So Hisatune today, kind of under the radar, but still shot -5. So, so put some respect on his name, I guess, right? But he gained across all 4 stat categories and was only about a neutral with the putter. It's a 6.5 out of 10 stat profile. Now, he wasn't great in any category, but solid across the board, and that's kind of what he does. I mean, if we go to Ryo over his last few months, you're going to see green across all 4 stat categories. And it's not like every single week he goes out there and smashes, but T4, T5, a couple top 20s in a row, T6 finished at the Charles Schwab Challenge. He's a very consistent player. So not really a surprise that he'd have that kind of stat profile. What do I think about Zach Johnson? Thanks. And of course, man, love to see you on the streams. Zach Johnson. I don't know if I can do it. I mean, he's a borderline senior tour player at this point. Normally not somebody I'm looking at Birdie Fest, but he has won the John Deere, which is where we're going to be next week. And that is a Birdie Fest. So I guess it's not the craziest thing that I've ever seen. So my thoughts on him are very low. It's like a 2.5, a 3 out of 10, but he played well today. That's for sure. You said lower for Hun is 0.77 though. Yeah. So with the multiplier, man, those are kind of useless because like if you enter that with another prop, you're getting like a 2.2x payout. That's a plus 120 parlay on a sports book, right? You get plus 120 odds. You get that and your wager back on a sports book. A site like PrizePicks or Underdog, you're not getting your wager back. So just kind of remind yourself when you're seeing the payouts, when you like combine that with another prop, that it takes away any sort of value that would be there. So yeah, I would stay away from those, man. I normally don't enter those. And it's the same thing with Sleeper. If on Sleeper, the multiplier is like 1.4 to 1.5x, I don't even waste my time on it because sure, it might have like a 60, 70% hit rate, but even then you would only be getting like comparable value for it, right? You wouldn't be like, oh, you're getting a 60% hit rate on a 50-50 prop and getting that sort of value. It's like, sure, you're getting that sort of hit rate, but then they're completely screwing you with the payout. Like you're not getting anything remotely close to what you should be. So yeah, I stay away from those. And that's kind of why I like PrizePicks the most, to be honest, because you can avoid that sort of thing. Like on PrizePicks, you don't have to deal with multipliers that are juiced through the roof. Just thinking for 3-ball matchups. Oh, okay. So I see what you're saying now. So you're saying like not looking at like strokes and stuff like that. Yeah, that would make a whole lot of sense, man. Like especially Morikawa, he lost like 4 strokes putting today. In fact, we'll have to see what his odds look like. And then you're also saying Hun-An and Fitzpatrick. Good call. And yeah, it'd be a completely different story, of course, for that sort of thing. Hey, Luke, any Eurogolf love this week? Haven't watched a second of it, and I know nothing about the golf course. So unfortunately, Bill Bobby, not going to have any DP World Tour stuff for you. The Live Golf stuff is stuff that I incorporate because I actually watched the Live Golf Tour, but very rarely am I watching the DP World Tour stuff. It's just on in the middle of the night, and I'm sleeping most of the time. Is it Hadman any counts? What do you mean by that? I don't know what you mean by that question. If you want to clarify that, I can give you some information. But I want to look at some of these 3 balls that Cade was throwing in the chat. So Morikawa versus Cantlay and Bradley. Morikawa's plus 150. I mean, that's a tough 3-ball. I mean, Cantlay, Bradley being your 2 matchups makes it kind of tough to want to take a plus 150, especially because he had the worst round out of the 3 today. So I think Colin Morikawa plays well, but I'm not sure that there's a good enough number at that plus 150 to warrant taking that sort of thing. And then who were the other 2, right? It was Hun-An and Fitzpatrick. Let's see what else we can find. So let's start with Fitzy first, and then we'll go to Benny Ann after. So Fitz is going against Bhatia and Fowler, and Fitz is actually the favorite, which I would probably have him as the second favorite behind a Bhatia. So once again, I think he's going to play well, but that plus 160 is kind of a disappointing number to see. And then let's look at Benny Ann. These sports books, they're getting good at what they do, right? They don't throw out terrible odds a lot. Benny Ann plus 120, terrible number, but the matchup is kind of nice against a Webb and a Zach Johnson. I mean, I'm being super nitpicky, right? By saying like, oh, the number's not great and whatnot. But realistically, I think that all three of those bets do make sense. Like Morikawa stat-wise sets up fantastically. Just to show you what I'm kind of alluding to, he had a really good approach day, but lost 4.5 strokes putting. That's probably something that turns around. Fitzpatrick's been playing well heading into the event. He also, if you take a look at his round today, right, gained 3.4 strokes approach. So yeah, I agree with you there, Cade. And then Benny Ann, same thing. You're completely spot on about it. So even though the odds aren't great, I'm not going to give you too much pushback. If you want to enter those three, I think they make quite a bit of sense there. Let's see. Damn, those odds suck. They do. They really do, man. Like plus 120. Like I know it's Webb. I know he's going against Zach Johnson, but like, come on, right? Like plus 120. Give us plus 135 or something. At least make it somewhat doable. The Morikawa 1-2 is kind of tough against those other two players, but maybe you can enter the Benny, the Fitzy one, I guess. But I don't know. It kind of stinks. And yeah, they're all the favorites. So the sports books, they're on top of that kind of stuff. Sometimes they aren't, Cade, but when they are, it's unfortunate because it takes some of that value away. But let's see what else we can find. Speaking of those those matchups, I was almost calling them a birdie a better matchup. These are strokes matchups, of course, that we have on DraftKings. Tempted to go Cam Davis, but he looked pretty broken today. I don't know if I can forgive him after that. Chandler Phillips did win his 3-ball for us today, so that was kind of nice at more than plus 200 odds. Who else is on there? Yeah, not betting Battle A. It's not 2015 anymore, unfortunately. If it was, it'd probably be a pretty good bet at plus 320 because he used to be an absolute stud out here. Don't hate a Grazeman fade. Grazeman was super short game dependent. Hubbard, let's look at his stats. I know he played really well today. He gained like 4 strokes approach. So yeah, respect to him there. That was a hell of a round. Højgaard didn't have his fastball, but I want to see how he did it at least. So he gained off the tee, lost approach, gained around the green, and then lost putting. I mean, plus 185 is borderline, I'd say. If that was plus 200, I'd be betting Nikolai Højgaard for sure at that sort of number. What else do we have on here? So Higo versus Hardy and Campos. None of those 3 players are players that I'm going to put my money on. There's just no shot in hell. Cam Young at plus 115, terrible odds. Not even looking at who he's playing. I'm never betting him for a 3-ball at almost plus 100. Matt McCarty versus Riley Villegas. Yeah, these odds are terrible. It's not even just the fact that I think they're pricing it well. It's also that the average odds across all 3 players are significantly worse than what we're used to seeing. I mean, you're usually getting better odds on these guys. Like they're not scamming nearly as much as what we're seeing here. I would say that out of every single matchup that we've seen so far, that this Hideki Matsuyama plus 165 is probably my favorite. And that's kind of sad to say because normally there's a lot more value on the board. And I just don't see as much this time around. We will look at the bottom end of the board, though, at some of the guys that are going off in the PM wave to see what we can work with. I mean, this is pretty terrible. I mean, like plus 185, plus 180, and these are the 2 and 3. Like, how does that make sense? Like, it's just straight up scam odds. Like, it's as blatant as it possibly gets. And I know FanDuel's odds are usually a little bit better, like maybe 10 points better in some cases is what you'll find on the FanDuel side. But I mean, what did we kill him too much the last month or something on these matchups? Like, what the heck's going on? They're not giving nearly as much value as he normally would. I'd say this Hideki Matsuyama one is probably the only one that I would say is worth betting at this sort of number. Like, I know FanDuel gives slightly better odds, so maybe you can get like plus 195, 200 plus 200 odds on Nikolai Højgaard, like we're looking at before. Maybe a few of the other guys that were marginal, like Colin Morikawa, for example, you get like plus 165 on FanDuel or something like that. If you can get them like 15 points better, and some of the guys that we were kind of deep diving, like Benny and Fitz, same thing, like maybe 15 points better, I would consider betting them. And I wouldn't say that they're massive value though. Like that would be fair value if we got them 15 points better. As is, though, like even the Sadeki one should probably be like plus 175 if we're being frank about it. They're not being very favorable with the odds that they're giving on these 3-ball bets. So the prudent thing to do if they're not giving us a good board or giving us good value or payout structure is to not enter as much. So we're just going to go with this Hideki Matsuyama 3-ball as the only one that we're pointing out for the sake of this live stream. There could be more that I end up entering because I can't even enter on DraftKings myself. As a lot of you guys know, I'm from Florida. I can only enter on Hard Rock bets. So I'm limited to only entering props on that site. So if I can get like plus 175 on Hideki, like, yeah, 100%. I'll enter that sort of a matchup. Maybe Højgaard will have a slightly better number. Maybe he's closer to like plus 200 on that kind of a slate. But I'm very picky about the props that I take. You guys probably have noticed that. It seems a little bit neurotic how much I'm considering these plays and how much I go through them and whatnot. But that's what it takes to get an edge on this stuff. Back in the day, it used to be break down the golf course, figure out whether it's going to play hard or easy, and then play props in that direction. But with them janking up the payouts, right, them kind of, really nerfing it down over the years, we've had to get a lot more picky about our process, and we've had to be a lot more disciplined about it because, back in the day when it was just like break down the golf course and whatnot, you could take, I don't want to say like anyone for unders or like anyone for positive stance plays and get away with it, but almost, right? Like you didn't have to pick out the guys that are primed for a good performance. And like when I was newer to it, it was easier to be really good at what I did. And I still do very well with my results, but there's a lot more work that goes into it now because it's a different dynamic. It's a different kind of environment when it comes to breaking down these props at this point. It's not nearly as straightforward. It's not impossible, that's for sure. But if you're going to try and find some value, it's going to take a little bit more work than it did a year or two ago. So on the Patreon page, of course, I go over how to find value on these different slates. You'll get an idea for not only why I'm getting to these plays and the plays that I'm getting to, but also the process that gets me onto a lot of these different options. So if you want to learn to be a better of golf, make sure to join the Patreon page. I'll link down below, as I was saying before, where you can get access to all of these plays. But I'm going to be adding quite a bit, I'd imagine, for round number 2. So for all that exposure, you can find that over there. Any 3-balls as I get to them on Hard Rock Bet will be posted on my Discord channel. It's a part of my Patreon page. And that's all I've got for round number 2. So best of luck, guys, with everything that you guys are going with. I'll see if there's any last second questions to go through. It does look like a few questions down there in the chat, and then we'll wrap this thing up. So smash the like button if you guys haven't already. Also subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss what we're doing for rounds 3 and 4, because if you learned something from this, if you found some value in this live stream, and of course the stuff we did yesterday and that slip that hit, subscribe so you don't miss anything to come, because we don't just cover rounds 1 and 2, but also rounds 3 and 4 for every single event on the schedule. Thoughts on Siwoo Kim, Thompson, and Kirk. So in general, I like Siwoo tomorrow. I like the fact that he's got the morning tee time. So if you're just asking my general thoughts on the players, I think Siwoo Kim's like a 6.5, 7 out of 10. So kind of like that. Davis Thompson's the same thing. I also would say he's like maybe even a 7, 7.5 out of 10, because you can see he gained over 3 strokes ball striking. Siwoo Kim, it was closer to like 2 strokes that he gained in the ball striking categories. Both of them, by the way, have room for improvement with the putter. And then who was the other one? Right, it was Thompson, Siwoo, and then, yeah, Kirky boy. I like Kirk's course history, and he played well today as well. He gained on approach. He was short game dependent. He did gain about 3 strokes between the around the green and the putting, but he has one of the best track records around this golf course. And just to give you an exact idea of what that track record looks like, I'm bringing it up on another tab. T44 last year, right, not so good. But listen to this: T14, T17, T12, and then T21. So that's 4 straight T21 finishes before that T44. And I mean, even a T44, I mean, we're being very nitpicky at that point. He still at least made the cut, which is a lot more than a lot of other people can say. So yeah, I'm okay with all 3 of them. And I think all 3 of them for DFS in particular as AMT times are some of my favorite plays on the board. He said, also appreciate the breakdown. SoFlo represent. Cheers to you, my man. It sucks from the sports books, but we luck out in a lot of other ways with the good weather and the beautiful women, right? Underdog scammers, they had cut lines for tomorrow of the top 4 guys and duped everything. DNP'd them. Yeah, doesn't surprise me, man. That's the Underdog way. I've been dealing with them for 5 years at this point, and their bullshit scams that they try and pull off. Yeah, usually it's they DNP. That's what they do, right? They make a big mistake, and then they end up just ripping them off the board. unfortunate. And I agree with you. It's kind of BS. Appreciate the Molenex 4.5 outlook yesterday. You see guys like Smalley, Matt Wallace at 69.5 for the afternoon. And yeah, Bryce, right? I don't think he went over that 4.5 mark, right? So it was good that we kind of like put some doubt on that spot. So you didn't go out there and nuke it too much. And so, of course, right, I'm glad I was able to give you that information. And you said guys like Smalley and Wallace at 69.5, would I lean over? If they were at 69, Bryce, I think they would be excellent plays for the over. At 69.5, we'd have to look at the shots gained metrics. If they were unfavorable shots gained metrics, I would definitely lean over. If not, I think they kind of make sense. So yeah, Smalley lost like 3 strokes approach. Yeah, that's definitely a lean towards the over, I would say. Then the other one was Matt Wallace. Let's see how he hit it. So he was a little bit better with how he actually hit the ball. So yeah, both are PM wave too, right? I think you said that in your question, but let me double check. So yeah, Wallace is PM wave. And then I'm assuming Smalley is as well, right? Let's see. Yeah, and Alex Smalley's also on that side of things. I'm okay with them, especially the Smalley one because he lost 3 strokes on approach. Right? If it's going to be like closer to a borderline play like maybe Wallace is, closer to like 50-50 at that -2.5 mark, somebody though that was really struggling that's where the scale would tip in that direction. But that's all I've got, guys. Best of luck, as I was saying before, and I'll see you guys for the round 3 live stream tomorrow night.